Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to talk about creating interactive menus, and we will be creating two menus, a game intro and a game over menu. So let's get started. So first of all, we have this pretty basic script here, and let's go ahead and define a new method. So let's go ahead and go under our colors here, and let's define a display text. And we've done this before, I'm just doing it to revise now. So text, style, color, and an attribute here for the location that will be by default set to top left. And then the coordinate will be by default 0, 0. So what we have to do next is let's create a font object and set this equal to pygame.font.sysfont, and let's use the style and the size. Oh, actually I forgot to add the size. Here should be size before the color. After creating the object, let's create a text surface object, and let's set this equal to font object.render. And inside here, let's set the text, true if you remember, and then color. And then a rect object to define a rect object for our text. Text surface object dot get rect. Great. So now let's take its individual case. So if attribute equals to top left, then what we need to do is rect object dot top left and set the top left to coordinate. And I'm just going to do this off camera now to just complete this with every other case. So I did it for every case here, and I just did a default fallback. So if none of these are true, then some mistake has happened, and we're just using the default top left equals 0, 0. So after our if statement, let's do rect object or actually game surface dot blit to paste it on our screen. And what we're doing now is we're pasting the text surface object and rect object here. We're pasting it onto the screen. Now let's actually add the display button. So div display button. Remember, this is the same from last time. And now we're just using a text, style, size, color, background color, X, Y, and mouse function. So right here, we're just creating a font object, font obj equals to pygame.font.sysfont, and we're using the style and size in here. So afterwards, we're just creating again a text surface object and setting this equal to font object.render, and we're setting it to text, true, and color here. Then we're just getting the rect object, so rect obj. This will be equal to text surface object dot get rect. Okay, perfect. So now let's just center this. So rect object dot center equals X and Y. So we're using the center and setting this equal to the X and Y coordinates that we provided. Now let's go ahead and position it, add some padding at the right and left, and also top and bottom. So rect X will be equal to rect obj dot left minus 5. So we're going 5 pixels left from the side. And then let's also do rect Y equals rect obj dot top -5. Okay, perfect. Now let's get the width and height of the rectangle and add 5 and 5 padding for both sides. So rect width will be equal to rect obj dot width plus 10, so 5 for each side, and then rect height, which will be equal to rect obj dot height plus 10. Then let's just get the mx and my, which are the coordinates for the mouse, and we're just doing pygame dot mouse dot get position, and then button underscore rect will be equal to pygame dot rect, and now we're just creating a rectangle with rect x, rect y, and it will be rect width and rect height. So x, y, and width and height, these are the details of the rectangle, and I'm going fast for this because we have just shown this in a previous lesson. This is just to make sure you revise. This is why I'm showing it again, but I'm going kind of fast because we've already seen it. So next we have to detect if we are between the mouse boundaries. So if rect x plus rect width is greater than mx, greater than rect x, and rect y is greater than my, and actually rect y plus rect height is greater than my, greater than rect y. Okay, so pygame dot draw dot rect, game surface and color white, and we're just using rect x, rect y, rect width, and rect height again. And now if, or actually else, we just want to draw this as a PG color, so we're going to do pygame dot draw dot rect on our game surface with the background color that we have specified and the same coordinates, so rect x, rect y, rect width, and rect height. And of course what we want to do here is, after the loop, just do game surface dot split to paste the text surface object and the rect object with the rect object at the destination. So afterwards what we want to do is just return a list of the button rect and the mouse function. And if you remember from last time, afterwards we have to define a button underscore action. We can call this with a mouse position and also the rect func list, which is the list that we just returned in this here function. So inside of this, if you remember, we just split the list. Rect and mouse func will be equal to rect func list. Okay. Now if our rect dot collide point, mouse point or mouse position, then we are calling the mouse function. So if we actually click the button, we are actually calling the function, the mouse function that we are setting here. And we're just going to define the ones that we have done previously. So if you remember from last time, we had defined a method called quit underscore game. And this method just all it did was do a pygame dot quit and an exit. And we also had defined a method called print msg. All this method did was just a print button clicked. Okay, so this is the default thing that we had done last time. If you have any questions or if you don't remember something, if you are not comfortable with something, just go back to that lesson, rewatch it to just get the hang of it again. So the first menu will have a play game and an exit button. So let's start coding for that. So first of all, let's go under these here and let's define, or actually let's create an intro which will be true, and let's define the exit intro. And right now, just bear with me, I will just explain this when it's all finished and completed. So we're creating a global intro here, and intro is false now. So this is how we exit our intro. And now let's define a more serious function, game intro. So inside here, let's do while intro. So while the intro is true, this is what this means. We are doing a game surface dot fill, and let's fill this with black. Then we are displaying the text, and in here what we're going to write is welcome to Jet Fighter as an example. Fighter, okay. Then let's define the style or the font. Let's use the Arial font, pretty basic. Let's use 24 as the size, green, and let's do mid top. Let's do coordinates display width divided by 2, and remember this just rounds it up to the nearest integer, and also 50. So pretty straightforward. We're calling the display text function that we created before. Now let's do exit game list. This will be equal to display button quit Arial, or put this inside of quotes, Arial 20 blue red as the background color, 100 for X and 400 for Y, and this is just going to call the quit game method. Okay, then let's do exit intro list. Let's set this equal to display button. This is just going to say play game in Arial again, in 20 size with blue and yellow background, in 500X and 400Y, and this is also going to call exit intro at the end. So now let's do an event handler inside of this method here. So let's go for event in pygame.event.get. So we're getting the list of the current events in the queue, and we're running a for loop just like the event handler inside of our game loop. So if event.type equals a pygame.quit, then what we're doing is pygame.quit, and we're exiting. So if this is not true, so else if event.type equals pygame.mouse button down, then let's do a button action event pause. So event.pause and exit game list. Okay, and then button action event dot pause and exit intro list. So afterwards what we want to do here is after our loop is just do a pygame.display.update to update everything on our screen. And just here after the intro, so if this while is not true, pygame.quit and also exit. Okay. And now let's just, and maybe we would want to do a clock.tick here 60 to manage the frames per second. And let's just go ahead and call our game intro here. And keep in mind, because when this is finished, it will exit and quit Pygame, we will actually never reach our normal game event, our normal game loop. So I think this is pretty much done. So let's go ahead and run. So welcome to Jet Fighter. If you press quit, it ends. And if you press play game, I don't think we have defined that yet. So let's take a look at the code as I promised you. So first of all, we have our normal stuff. Then we have a display text method. We have a display button method. You know what this stuff does. Then you have the button action method that is responsible for the mouse functions and whatever the button does. You have a quit game, a print message, and then you start the program. So we set the intro equal to true. So we create a global variable called intro and we set it to true. And then we define exit intro. So this is a simple function that changes intro to false. Notice it is using the global keyword to access the intro variable. Otherwise, we would just end up creating a new intro variable in a local scope to this function. So we just had to use this over here. Remember this from variables at the very beginning of the course. And then we are defining our main here method called game intro. So here we have a function that actually creates the game intro menu. So the last line of code above is where we call this function. So where is it? Okay, so here is where we call our function. So let's go ahead and see what this does. So while intro, here we have something familiar. We have a kind of different game loop like this one here. Only this is particularly customized to our intro screen. So instead of actually being true for all the time, this is just true when the intro is happening. So it's sort of like starting to build a finite state machine for some of you that might know what this is. Just keep this keyword in mind. So then we are using a display text, and then we're just printing some text. So welcome to Jet Fighter. Remember, this is here the text at the top, nothing too complicated. And then we are creating the two buttons. So we're creating the quit and the play game button. And these are the functions that they have. They have the quit game, and quit game is just a quitter here. And we have the exit intro, which just makes this false. And so we move on to quitting again. So basically the same thing happens if you press either one of those. So this will actually change after we exit the intro. This will have to change to something else. But for now, we're just closing everything down here. So now we have the event handler inside of this loop. So remember, this is sort of like a new game loop for us. So a game loop must have an event handler. So we're just checking if we press the X button to close the program. And if we're pressing the mouse button down, we are just calling the button action just like we did in the mouse event and keyboard event course or lesson. Afterwards, we are updating the screen, we're setting the frame rate, and now if you exit this while loop, you are just going to pygame.quit and exit. Now, if our program did not have this, it would still run exactly the same. So, as you can see, we're still running the same thing over here, because this never reaches that point over here. So I hope you understand how it all works. If not, then you probably have some issues with the button or the keyboard and mouse events. Just go back to those lessons, take some more notes, and come back here to put this all together and actually understand what's going on. Okay, so now that we understand how this program works, let's go ahead and define another method here that we are going to call this begin game. So let's go ahead and after here, let's define begin game. So this is going to have no parameters. So we're going to create a game running variable and set this to true. Now while the game is running, we're going to check for event in pygame.event.get. So we're sort of creating another game loop over here, and each game loop is responsible for doing a different menu. In this game loop we are creating the intro menu, and this game loop we are creating the other menu that we wanted to create. So for event in pygame.event.get, so for every event that is happening, we are going to check if event.type is equal to pygame.quit. And if this is true, we're just doing the regular quit thing. So pygame.quit and exit. Now, for what we are doing on a regular printing, game surface dot fill, and let's fill this with a black color. Then let's display some text. So display text, the game is running. So normally we would just put whatever the game was over here, but we don't actually have a game. So we're just saying the game is running. And let's display that in our normal Arial style with 24 as the size, red, and our mid-top coordinates are going to be display width divided by 2 and rounded up, and 50 for the y value. So then, as expected, we will do a pygame.display.update, and we're just going to do now a time.sleep for 5 seconds here. And let's actually go up here and import time. Okay, now let's scroll all the way down here. And afterwards, let's just do a game running equals false. So outside of our while loop, we are going to do a pygame.quit and then exit here. So what we're doing here, oh, and I almost forgot, in here in our game intro, if we are outside of our game intro, instead of actually quitting here, what we want to do is do a begin game. So if we are done with the intro, if we press play game, you actually want to begin the game. So what you want to do here is just, oh, I forgot the, oh, actually you don't need to control the frames since you have a time.sleep here. So now all we have to do is actually try our game. So welcome to Jet Fighter. As you remember, quit just closes the window. Play game now. It says the game is running on our screen. And because we did a time.sleep 5, after 5 seconds the window closes because the game running now is equal to false. And this just comes back over here. So now let's just actually create the game over menu. Now this will have 2 buttons. One of them will be quit and the other one will be play again. So let's go ahead and define, and actually I would like to define this here with the button events. So define play again and this will just be a global game and game and will be equal to false. So our program here, we want it to just, now let's scroll all the way under here, and now we're going to add a game underscore and, which will be equal to true, and then let's define our game underscore over menu. So let's create another loop here. So while our game and in here you're just going to do game surface dot fill and fill this with black. Afterwards, what you want to do is let's display some text, game over in Arial, and with 24 size. This will be green, and the mid top coordinates will be display width divided by 2 and rounded to the nearest integer, and also 50 for the Y. This is the game over button. No, this is the game over text. Now let's just do the button. So exit game list will be equal to display button, and now we're just displaying play again. We're using Arial here as the font size, or the font, 20 as the font size, then we're using blue as the color and red as the background color, 100 for X, 400 for Y, and let's call quit underscore game at the end. Now let's also define the play again button, so play underscore again list. So now we're just displaying the button. Actually this is meant to say quit, excuse me. Now we're just saying play again. I got confused, I'm sorry. So now let's do this Arial 20 blue and yellow, and this will be 500 and 400 and play again. Okay, now let's actually at the top here we can set our events, or actually it's fine, let's just do it under here. So for event in pygame.event.get, in here all we need to do is do if event type equals pygame.quit. This is just basic stuff, we've already done this before many times. Pygame.quit and also exit. Now let's just define also the other event. So what we do for the other event, so event.type equals pygame.mouse button down. Now we're just going to call the button action event.pause and exit game list, and the other action will be event pause play again list. Okay, so now we're just going to make an update here at the end. So pygame.display.update, and actually when we reach the end of our loop here, what we want to do is begin game. Okay, and there's one more thing that we need to do. So let's go in our begin game here, and instead of actually stopping the game here, we could just create a global game end, and the game end will be equal to true, game over. So instead of actually quitting when the game is over, we are just triggering the game over state. So I think we are done now. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. So welcome to Jet Fighter. Let's just test all the buttons. If we press quit, we close the game. If we press play game, it says the game is running for 5 seconds. And after those 5 seconds are over, it says game over. And we can quit now to close the window. Or let's just run this again. Or we could press play again, and it says again the game is running, and then it will again trigger the game over scene. So let's go ahead and analyze this code. And actually we do not need this loop here. Okay. So I've hidden all of the non-relevant methods here. So we have a play again, which all it does is it triggers the game end to be false. Now starting our game, we're just setting the intro to be true. And we're also defining our exit intro here, which all it does is it sets the intro to false. Now, inside of our game intro, all we are doing here is we're setting this game loop that just does all of the menu for the initial screen. We have already talked about this. And at the end of this, so when this becomes false, we are actually beginning the game. So in this begin game method, all we're doing is we're running the game is running display screen. And afterwards, we are just calling the game over part. And all this does is it just says game over, you want to play again or quit. So these are the three different screens that we have. So we have the game intro that is displayed at first. Then we have the begin game, which is displayed for just 5 seconds and has no menu. And then we have the game over screen. So there are sort of 3 game loops that you are kind of switching over between of them. So you're starting with the intro, then you move over to the game, and then to the game over screen. So it's like a loop of loops. Okay. So if something doesn't make sense, just go back to a previous lesson where we talk about the buttons, or whatever you're not sure of. There is a lesson that has been done before. Just this time we just combined everything together into one big thing, and so you might be a little confused. It's okay, just take your time to review the code. Make sure you understand it moving forward. It's really, really important. Don't leave anything behind that you don't understand. You should always cover what you don't know. And I will see you on the next lesson. Bye bye.